Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. In today's homeroom, we're going to blame the white man. Got a bit of an agenda, and we're going to land our plane right at the feet of the straight white man's door. So let's consider that part 3 of homeroom today. Part 2 is going to be an examination of what would I call it? The deep philosophical divide that pitted pitted white man against white man. I guess that's where we're going with this. And then in the first part of today, we're going to be looking at some historical context when it comes to how we can blame white men. So this is going to be interesting. This is a live stream, so you're going to have to buckle your seatbelts and get ready for a ride. My hope and expectation is that on the latter part of our time together, we are going to open up the stage since it's Friday. We should be heading to happy hour after our long day at work. And this long week, considering the school plane is about to land, happy hour is afoot. My plan was to do happy hour this afternoon around I don't know what time, to be honest with you. So if you have any feedback, that'd be great. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do happy hour today. So don't hold me to it. But if you see me pop up live up here in this space, then you're welcome to join, and we will figure out what happy hour could look like together. So buckle in for. Sorry, I'm monitoring the YouTube channel. Let me actually put the link up so that if you wanted to watch this in a more visual way, you can get the same experience. Let me click in here. All right. Blame straight white men. Why not? What's up, Booknut? What's up, Adri Educator? Glad you guys are here. I think I know what your routine is in a very broad sense, Adri. So I'm going to just cook. If you want to jump in, give me a signal. Okay, guys, let me get all of my housekeeping together, and let's get into this. So. Oh, white man, where do I begin? What a colorful story. What a tattered series of threads upon which we can pull. Here's where I want to begin. At 4:03 after the hour, welcome to Homeroom. You're at the Educator's House. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We bring 1 hour of morning show that is relevant to educators that want to step back and look at the bigger picture. Because there's a lot going on in our space. And oftentimes we, as frontliners, get so caught up in the day-to-day and what our students may need, what the campus politics are, that we don't get an opportunity to step back and see ourselves in context. And so homeroom is a great opportunity in the morning to get us grounded, to get us thinking outside of our classroom that can help put what we do in the classroom in a bigger context. We've been participating in a multi-part series on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Honestly, I don't know why. Maybe I'm personally triggered. I don't know why I have been digging so deeply into this, but it has so many more layers than I originally assumed. I hear about Kendi and critical race theory, and I hear that it's a theory, not a curriculum, and don't confuse critical race theory from culturally responsive teaching. Like it is a grab bag of issues that I decided I need to really unpack. And so with that, here we are. This is day 3 of week 3 of a 5-week challenge that I've put myself on to show up. I mean, if you look on the YouTube, I got the tattered beard and everything. Okay, I'm a bit unkempt. Good morning, Leticia. But I'm in here, committed, the things that I'm about to get started. So I appreciate your patience while I kind of ground myself. the things that I am questioning, and I appreciate the feedback from every member of this community, is one, is this pace sustainable? Or two, do I have the right systems in place to make it more sustainable? So far, it is what I'm present to. And at some point, I think I will get the skills. Those of you who have followed the journey, and you might want to go back to see how we've kind of journey through diversity, equity, and inclusion, you'll also notice that I've been playing around with like screenshots and bringing up videos and piping in audio. So this whole 5-week experimental phase is designed to fine tune what Homeroom can look like, to get me the experience, to learn like the technical pieces and all of that. So I appreciate everybody's patience. And for you early investors, I really am grateful. And I do believe that if you stick with this project over time, you're going to see a well fine-tuned live stream 1-hour show that's highly relevant to any professional in the educator space. Okay. With all of that being said, and I appreciate your patience. Hey Mars, if you're interested, you can come up, and I'm gonna be cooking for the first part, and then we'll open up the stage for the second part if anything is relevant to you. Adrian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go ahead and get started. Mike is yours. Glad that you're here, Adrian. I hope one day, maybe after you move and get settled in, that we can do some work together. I don't know what does that time look like for you? What's 4 a.m. look like on Japanese hour? So you would be off of work, theoretically. Okay, yeah, maybe, just maybe, we can do some cooking together. I would love that. Audio. Like, sure. There is that part. No audio. Leticia, I don't know what that means. Leticia's telling me no audio, but my thing is telling me she's on YouTube. Yeah. So me figuring out how to get these two to work seamlessly together has been a technical challenge. Okay, for the record, it looks like my audio is clear on the YouTube side. So if you can, matter of fact, let me just verify that. Verify. No. Yeah, could you please? The link is above. Okay, I'm gonna start cooking, and jump in. My eyes aren't. Okay, good. Okay, well then we'll just proceed. Okay, let's start with phase one. I know I had a whole agenda. See, I'm trying to fine tune my beginning because I think I do. Oh, they can't hear you on Clubhouse. Clubhouse can't hear your voice. That's what she means. I don't know what that means. Let me correct. YouTube can hear me, but they can't hear you. So let me try. The technology. Okay, this is what comes with live stream. Let me try. Say something so she can hear.
What up, though?
What up, though? What it do? Leticia, let me know if you can hear Adrian now.
Hey, Fro.
Sometimes it's just a matter of clicking the damn button. Hey, Fro, you can come up if you want. No pressure space though, just so you know. They can't hear feedback from Clubhouse. Okay. Let's continue. What I did, you know how Zoom is when you be like, I can't hear you, and it's like you just have the wrong mic connected. So I'm gonna give that a try. It's all good. Keep cooking. All right, we're just gonna keep cooking, and I'll have to spend some time on it. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My assumption is that most of you are on your way to your workspace and you're here to share this hour with us. So let's get into this. I hope everybody is ready for a kumbaya, what would I call it? A picnic for the white man. That's where I think we're going to land this plane today. So on our journey, what I'd like to do is start with let me say that'll be phase 3. Phase 2 is going to be distinguishing one white man from another. And phase one is going to be the context. So be ready for this big journey. If you missed the bigger context of what's going on, maybe check out the replay, because I don't want to spend too much time being redundant for those who are watching the live experience. Okay. We're landing this multi-part series, and it's going to get very relevant to what's happening in education. So this is sort of the last little piece of the Jenga puzzle, that I have been laying together over this multi-part series. And it is really about critical theory. Critical theory is what I want to offer up on this fine Friday. In terms of context, let's step back a little bit. Okay. When we, in our previous recording, our previous homeroom, we talked about Clarence Thomas, and Clarence Thomas being a son of the 1950s, in, I think it's called Pine Lane, Georgia, which is like over in Geechee Island area. He came in a very interesting context. Okay. And it's understanding his story clarified how he ended up as both the Supreme Court justice, and it also clarified how he ended up as a staunch conservative against a lot of these DEI and affirmative action type policies. Now, we also, before that, went all the way back to 1865. And what I assumed was the moral conscience of Abraham Lincoln to emancipate the slaves. Well, come to find out, it was actually a very strategically necessary decision. Did nobody love us back then? My grandpappy's grandpappy was not of the flavor of the day, right? So anyway, during those days, we're talking about the 1860s, right? Move into Freedmen's Bureau, move forward into Reconstruction, and a lot of Black people getting into political office. People's marriages were finally being formally registered. Like it was a golden era of Blackness in the immediate post-Civil War time, right? We were promised 40 acres of a mule, 40 acres and a mule. All this was happening. It was the glory days, if you will. And that lasted about 7, maybe 12 years at the most. And then we see the rise of Jim Crow and the terror, the reign of terror over the next couple of centuries, if you will allow that broad estimation. Okay, it's in that gray area that I want to start laying in this context, because what we're talking about is the theory of enlightenment. And this is where things all start to get very interesting. Notice, matter of fact, let's go to our handy dandy artificial intelligence machine here. Enlightenment, also known as the Age of Reason, took place in Europe. Note the dates, from the 17th century to the early 19th century, from the 1600s to the 1800s. So what was happening in Enlightenment was happening during the transatlantic chattel slave system. It took me a while, if I could just riff for you guys' morning benefit, it took me a while to put that together. That why were, okay, let me even make it more personal. I'm a chemistry teacher, right? When I think about chemistry, I think about Boyle and his law. I think about, I got a whole book. I wish I could name more white men's names, but I think about the periodic table. Ooh, what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name, right? But anyway, forgive me. The founder of the gas law, the founder of metallurgy, the guys who came up with some of these pieces of glassware, the designers that created glassware, they helped us separate oxygen from hydrogen, for example. The privilege. Notice where I'm going with you here. The privilege to be able to sit in your lab and compare the densities of sodium versus aluminum so that you could place them on a periodic table. Boy, what time you have, what leisure time, what privilege, right? And so as a chemistry teacher, early in my career, I was just teaching the science, objective.
this is, this is this element, the other element, you compare them, you can look at their valence electrons and see how they bond. Like, I was just a chemistry teacher. But when I learned that it wasn't my job to teach chemistry, but it was my job to teach Madia Kashmir, it was my job to teach Adrian, right? It was my job to teach Marcus. That changed my philosophy, and it also changed my approach to teaching, because chemistry just became the context through which I was actually teaching these human beings. Big change in my thinking about my profession. Well, once I started thinking about the people in the class more than just the subject as a pure and objective thing, it started to sit in a social context science. So it started to make sense that while my ancestors were being brought in boats across the Atlantic Ocean, which is wild work, right? The bottom of the boats in the Atlantic Ocean in chattel chains, to be enslaved persons in the great new land, right? Which was seeking freedom from their own oppression by oppressing others. I mean, the irony is so thick. Meanwhile, right, while all this money is flowing, right? Let's keep in mind, we're talking about the islands. Those islands, the sugar plantations, you talk about brutal work, right? I think the average lifespan was something like 7 years. And they would work them literally to death and then just replace them from the great lands of Africa, where there were just unlimited bodies that would do free labor, So within that context, people of African descent, I'll put it that way, were subject to the enslavement system, the tri-Atlantic, whatever they call it, right? Meanwhile, the money's being made and is being flowed into Europe. So these Europeans have, their freaking white wigs on, and, they're not wearing no deodorant, and they over there doing science because they have the privilege because of this, right? So within the context, this Enlightenment era, which again is in the 1600s, is during slavery, right? So there's something very interesting about that. Okay, again, I'm laying in context here. So walk with me. Let's walk slow. Shout out to Mysterious Man, Mr. Ben Israel, Fro. Thank you guys for coming through. Adrian, I'm going to make you a moderator. I know you have a busy morning, but if you feeling, I'm going to trust your judgment in terms of who and when to invite up onto the stage. Okay, so within this context of enlightenment, then we can move into, let's go to 1895, right? So this is sort of the end of enlightenment. And what was expected of that day? Actually, let me bring up Karl Marx. This is really the trigger word for everybody in this space. He's sort of a major character. Karl Marx predicted that the proletariat would naturally rise up and overthrow the power class. This was a lot of his, this is my version of his prediction. I'll put it that way. Karl Marx and communism often get paired together, but Marx was a philosopher of the Enlightenment era, okay? And he had a very proletariat point of view, and he was very critical of the power class. And according to him, there would be a natural revolution, and the people would take over. But unfortunately, or fortunately, it just didn't happen that way as he predicted. And so along comes this other guy, not Marx, but I'm going to call him Max. I don't know how to say his last name. He's a German guy. Anyway, this guy was born in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay. So during this time, we have a school that's being founded, and it is an extension of Karl Marx's concepts. And what Max does is he wants to synthesize Marx's ideas with things like the media, modern psychology of the day. And child, don't get me started on naming the psychologists of that era, because that's going to open up a whole nother funky can of worms here. Okay. The technology of the day, etc. His philosophy, Max, was that philosophy cannot be as sterile, which is why your prediction, Marx, failed. It has to be rooted in actual society and what's actually going on. And so he starts what's called critical theory, and he compares it to traditional theory. And so this is where we move into phase 2, distinguishing one white man from another. So in this context, let's keep in mind, all of Europe is benefiting. They're beneficiaries of the transatlantic slave trade system. So they have the leisure to do deep philosophy and all of these cool science experiments and whatever else was going on, right, during the colonial regime of air quotes white men. But here now we start to have pushback. These white men have so much privilege and time that they can now fight with each other as it relates to what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is not true, because they have a whole bunch of leisure time because they got this free labor, right? I think you understand where I'm going with this. So these are the two philosophies, right? The one philosophy which you can call traditional or classical, and the other which you can call critical. Okay, so I just want to lay out these three counter positions of these two major philosophical camps, if you will allow that. Okay, on the traditional side, again, this is philosophically speaking. Traditional philosophy says facts are not values, but we need both. So it highlights that there is a dualistic nature to man. There is to the universe, probably writ large, that there is objective, factual things that are true regardless. And there are values, things that we as humans decide are right and wrong. And these two things are not the same, which means a human who has all of the values can step out of himself and observe objective truth. Okay. On the other side, critical theory says
that was the classical side.
Oh. That was the classical side, the traditional side.
Thanks.
Critical theory says facts and values are intimately intertwined, that you cannot, as a human being, and all of this is a construct, you cannot separate facts from values, because what we perceive as facts are rooted in our perception of values. Okay, so this is one, whether we have a dualistic nature or whether all of this is intertwined is one thing. Okay, distinction number 2. Facts are, facts should be politically neutral. So there was a guy, again, I don't have the time to show the video and all of that. I'm working on it. Give me some time, but suffice it to say, I'll drop some sources though, once I get a chance. The going philosophy was keep your politics out of academics. Academics should be about teaching objective and factual things, and then let the people decide, right? So a true scientific project, looking at true objective facts, should be apolitical, and it shouldn't be married. On the other side, critical theory says science is a social practice. It is inherently political. This is what I came to, right? And I didn't even know about these guys back then. But when I looked at it, I was like, how come in all of my science history textbooks, there's not a single Indian? There ain't no Chinese people? I mean, I have a bias. I'd love to hear some African scientists. But why is it that all these people who came up with all these breakthroughs around chemistry, and I could do a whole chemistry lesson, don't get me started. How come all of them are white men? Like, is it the white man just like whitewashing history? Or were Chinese people and Indian people and African people and natives of all their lands, none of them were asking the same questions? So I came to the assumption that it was inherently political, that it was because of the slave trade. It was because of all the money that was flowing that they had the leisure time to do these sorts of investigations. Whereas us, we were on the other side. We were on the side of the oppressed during that system. So we didn't have the luxury to, have cool glassware, that could bubble up and distill stuff. Like, we didn't have that. So so now you can see my bias because I'm leaning more towards this critical theory side. The science is not objective, but it happens inside of a social context. Okay, so that's two. Facts should be apolitical and neutral and pure, whereas the other side, the critical side, says science is social. You can't separate the two. Okay, the last one that I will use to distinguish these two major camps. Traditional or classical philosophy says that truth is objective, regardless of perception. So we can set our opinions aside and say I mean, I don't know. I operate on an app called Clubhouse. There are some of us who say that the globe, that the earth is not even real, round or spherical, that it's flat. So even that as an objective truth, right? The sun is in the middle of the solar system. Maybe it's not objectively true. I don't know no more. So anyway, the traditional side says truth is objective. And if you can't make it objective, meaning it exists independent of your belief or your observation or your perception, then it is not truth. Okay, it is not considered objective. On the other side, the critical theory says that truth is a subjective reflection of society. And so, what is true for us today certainly was not true for us when Frederick Douglass was alive back in the Civil War era. And how, to hammer this point in, because we talked about it in our last session regarding Clarence Thomas. And don't forget, I should invoke Anita Hill, say her name. What was happening in terms of truth in Clarence Thomas's day, and his contemporaries were what? Clive Davis, Harry and Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, all of those, Bill Clinton, right? All of those contemporaries have gotten into a lot of hot water because of their sexual, what would I call it? Sexual practices, the ways that they treated women back then. We can look now at our truth today and look back at both the Clarence Thomas era and the Frederick Douglass era and say there were problems based on our lens, right? So these are the two major philosophies. Now, once we get into the more modern thing, which I hope you guys come, because it's going to be a doozy. And I'll land with this as we're getting to the half-hour mark. So shout out to Dr. Vaughn, Faiza. Tarnished Reputation is back. Glad you guys are here. So, Adrian, if you could start bringing people up onto the stage that you think would add value. Okay.
I've been that's how Carla got here.
Thank you, dear.
Mhm.
What we're going to do this Sunday is I'm going to bring a highly recommended white man, a professional historian, to join us on this Sunday's live conference. So mark your calendars, Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Me and this white guy are going to talk about this critical theory. I want us to start from, let's call it the civil rights movement, and sort of end in the 80s and 90s. And somewhere in there, we're going to get into critical theory as well. So now let's get into phase 3, which is blame the white man. So whether you are of the traditional camp that, facts are objective and what is happening is real and it's okay. What I would call this, what I'm terming the traditional philosophy, in my bias lens, the long walk to freedom philosophy. Hey, it's okay. Racism is not as bad as it was, a generation ago, and it certainly wasn't as bad as it was back in, slavery days. So we're making that long march to freedom. Relax, who's my favorite singer? Nina Simone would say, go slow. You're good. The other side says everything is systemic. All of what we see is a system of the invisible white man. Maybe it's the corporate structure. Maybe it's the capitalistic oligarchs, or today it might be the technocrats. Whoever is in charge, there's a few people in charge, and they are in charge of the system. They're in charge of our thinking. They frame how we approach things. They define for us the scope of what's right and what's wrong. all of this is systemic. And if we don't battle the systems of oppression, like Marx suggested the proletariat would do back in his day, if we don't battle these systems, then we are going to have continued oppression, and will never really be able to experience the freedom that we as humans deserve. These are the two major camps. Now, I don't want to get into the layers under that just yet. I want to save it for Sunday. But I think whichever side you're on, there are white men who we can blame. So in this space, and I know that's a bit polarizing, but I hope you are smelling what I'm stepping in here. Let me ease back off of this mic and share some of the space. So Adrian, Carla, welcome you guys to the stage. Adrian, if you'd like to go first, I wonder, first, let me free you. I know I be ranting. So if you want to respond to blaming the white man for DEI, you're welcome to, but it's also Friday. So if you have your own news, you have something else that you're present to, like, just take the mic and add whatever value you have if you're available.
I actually took today off, so I am available in a way I typically am not. You have clearly learned my routine because around now I would be settling at my desk.
Right.
So I appreciate you for that. No, I find it interesting. You were talking about flat Earth only briefly, and I had spent a lot of time kind of just exploring that idea and going to rooms. Oh man, Carla left like that, and so this idea of like critical theory and things like that is really interesting. And then just yesterday, we were having some conversation around the science of gender and sex, right? And so in this, I think what I realized, so as you were talking, I was like, I think this would have been really helpful to me 2 days ago so that I could have used it in yesterday's conversation because I was much like you. I don't believe that science ever operates completely objective. I think that's part of what you're talking about. Maybe you didn't say that, but that's kind of what I'm getting from it is that to me, science doesn't really operate objectively. And to me, facts are, as much as people say a fact is a fact, I do think there's nuances to facts and ways in which facts move around. Most of us who are in here probably had the fact of Pluto just being a planet and not a dwarf planet, right? And so there's nuances to that. And I do think that because beliefs are what guide science in the first place, right? You believe a thing, so you seek to prove it, right? Whatever that thing is, that thing, which is both a social science thing and more your hard sciences, right? You think a thing, you believe a thing, so you set up a study, an experiment to see if what you're thinking is valid. And to think that that would operate absent of political ideas, absence of biases, absence of the impact of your own growing, to me is just ridiculous. And then I think the last point around that I'll say is that not only do I think it's ridiculous, I don't think it's reflective of where good discoveries and ideas come from. Your experiences are what shape you to be able, I think often the definition of creativity is being able to, creativity is often defined by this idea to take something from one dimension and really look at it, position it, and think about it very differently in another. And maybe dimension's not the right word, right? And so I think there's value in creativity and in the mind. And so I think I think they're inherently biased. And bias on various things, whether that's political. I think there's bias in science on a regular basis, and it starts in a bias. And I think scientists work to find ways to remove the bias, ways to mitigate the bias that may exist in their theories. But I think that how they came up with the thought that they had in the first place is already based on, lived experiences, understandings and things like that. So I think I can land there in terms of my initial thinking of it, which is open to being pushed and challenged some more as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for that share. I'm actually going to jump in and I see we've got some new folks onto the stage. So, by way of quick announcement, 35 minutes after the hour, we're just over the halfway mark. Shout out to all the pink ticket holders. If you find anything of value, go ahead and join the Educator's House. I would appreciate your support. I'm also live streaming, as you can see up top, live streaming on YouTube. So, if for whatever reason you can't be on the app or you try to let somebody know about this high value content, you can drop the YouTube link and they can check out what we've been doing. A couple things. First, I want to shout out Mars over in the chat. He says, I'm not sure if I'd say that science itself is inherently political, but the usage of science can be. And I left a response, but I'll articulate it in this way. But it does happen in context, right? Science does happen in inherent context. Now, the traditional philosopher says that we can separate the two and still do objective science, right? The mass of oxygen is on average 15.999, right? The mass of carbon is 12.000, right? So there are some things that we have defined as objectively true. However, new science says with the existence of quarks, whatever those things are, your mere presence affects its velocity or position or whatever, right? If a tree falls in the forest, do you hear it? Maybe not. If there's not a human ear to actually process the sound, then maybe it doesn't make a sound, right? So, whatever our understanding is of the day sets the objective truth. But just like I said around slavery being what it is, or how we treated women during the 40s and 50s and much of the 60s too, like we look back now and say, God, that was really wrong. But during the time, apparently they thought that they were not doing something as wrong as we think they were, right? So it updates. And I think that's also true of science. Our understanding of science updates over time and with new technology. So whether it's inherently political might be a worthy debate, but whether it's objectively true, I think has been proven false time and time again as time moves on. I'm going to pass it to Mr. Sigma, then Leticia Lewis here on the app, but I want to give a shout out to Leticia Wilson, who's over on YouTube, keeping the chat active. So thank you for that. Mr. Sigma, mic is yours.
Hello, people. Thanks for getting on the stage, and hello, YouTube as well. I heard you streaming. So I just want to, I listened to what you said, and I want to get my part of it. So listen, I believe that we can. I mean, just for me to be sure, DEI, right? You mean with that inequality and all those?
Yeah, the
If I'm sure.
diversity, equity,
Perfect.
inclusion thing. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So to make this pretty efficient, right, we'll have to ban and just rape all the nigger Jews. All the nigger Jews, we have to rape them. That's what I think. And kill all of them. Those monkey nigger.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. I couldn't do it.
Oh,
You
wow.
can take my being away from me,
No,
but
I appreciate you.
that was pretty grotesque. Pretty grotesque. And
Welcome to the
just
live
not in
stream.
the Educator's House. I am so sorry. If that was not the right thing to do, I do apologize.
We're going to keep this party moving. Leticia Lewis, if you're available, ma'am, the mic is yours.
Oh my gosh, good morning. I can't believe they did that. And they sat there that whole time. Like, people, oh my gosh, mental health is for real. But Husan, thank you for always saying my first and last name. I'm like, I need to change my name, but I always appreciate you the way you say my name. So Leticia Lewis. So thank you. And so I came on the tail end of your intro. Was that an intro? Like, what was the last thing were you talking about? Because I feel like I don't really know quite what to address.
Sure. So, in big context and in a quick summary, what I have done on today's homeroom is lay the historical context through which we have gotten to where we are. And a lot of it had to do with today's piece, had to do with Karl Marx, what was going on during Enlightenment, and whether or not what's happening politically can be separated from the facts and the objective reality. Then I distinguish these two philosophies. So you have what's considered the traditional philosophy, which is more in alignment with your capitalism and your technology. I'll put it there. And then you have the critical theory, which looks to examine these systems of power and is critical of those systems of power as the means to support the oppressed class, whatever group that might be. And these two competing philosophies are still dominated by white men. So wherever we end up on the spectrum of diversity, equity, and inclusion, somewhere is a white man behind all of this, kind of pushing both of these agendas forward. That might not be a fair characterization, but that's how I would summarize it for you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that's a lot.
It's a
But
lot, yeah.
I love this series. I love this series that you're doing. For me, I know a lot of people last year during the election cycle was really like anti-woke, but I feel like being woke, and you mentioned enlightenment, and I feel like these last 4 years, well, 4 to 5 years since the pandemic, an enlightenment period really did happen for us all. I feel like we shifted timelines, quote unquote, if you will, but a lot of people start to really like question things. I'm not proud of the gender wars, but like that was definitely like where enlightenment on both end of people questioning if the way that we've been interacting with male and female relationships, if that serves us, if that works for us, even though I don't agree with the red pill movement or stuff like that. But it's fair, it's because there's the wokeness going on and people are thinking. So yeah, as far as that, the white man thing, I definitely believe that too, that behind of it all there's an agenda, because when we talk about the gender war thing, I really do believe that we fell right into the trap of the divisiveness of like, let's just let them argue among each other and we get what we want. And I see that especially with this administration, that they are passing all the stuff that they want to pass while we are online arguing with each other. And so it's very unfortunate. And the thing is, we know when we were, in the height of Black Lives Matter and stuff, we were like, oh, we need to stay together. And I feel like that's what happened where the gender wars started. And it was like, these people are starting to work together now. We can't have that. So let's find something. And I know this might be on the what you call it, the conspiracy wavelength, if you will, but I really do believe that there is an intentional effort, and like ops online with all the rhetoric that they push and stuff to really keep us divisive and not really like addressing what needs to be. And it's more prevalent than ever. I hope y'all can hear me. I'm driving. I know the audio sucks. Sorry.
No, I appreciate your acknowledgement because it was loud, but we can hear you over top of it. But yeah, you bring up some interesting things, right? Woke versus base, red pill versus, gender issues. All of these sort of, and I'm gonna pass it right to you, Mars. All of these sort of special interests. Room has been made for these conversations, I would say, because of critical theory, which says you can look at any system and you can look at any particular group and compare them now, right? Pit them against one another. The question that I have is, how far is too far? How far is too far? Is there no far enough, right? Every political group you want to identify as a wildebeest, you should have room to do that in society because we want you to be your fullest self, right? Live your fullest life. You live your best life, and society should be structured to make room for that. So if that means that we need to put a little caddy litter box in the corner so that you wildebeest can manage that, then that's what society should do. Maybe that's going too far. But then on the other side of the extreme, when we talk about pure capitalism, there is, and history proves this out, there is a nepotism that's involved. There is always going to be the inherent bias of familiarity. So if I have to hire between a brother and, anybody else, there's something inherent, because I know that we can make certain underlying assumptions given our cultural connection, right? Or whatever it may be that I want to identify with. So on the other extreme, if a few people have extreme amounts of power, then it can create a wider and wider gap. And so I do think that the tension between these two is important, because taking either one to their extreme is going to be quite problematic and logistically difficult. And so it is something that we need to continue to struggle with. And my hope is that perhaps there is some middle ground. I'll close with this, and it looks like everybody who wants to come on stage, Dr. Coleman, I see, is here, highly respected educator as well. If you'd like to come up and give greetings, you're more than welcome to do so. We have probably 10 minutes left in our time together, 10 or less. So just keep that in mind. I think this tension is important. So how we push forward is going to be quite interesting, but the pendulum is certainly swinging in the other direction. Hey, Dr. Coleman, I know you just got here, so you might not have quite the temperature of the room, but if you'd like to greet the room and let folks know who you are and what you're up to, we can make space for that. And maybe you can jump in with your thoughts in a bit.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I don't know the temperature yet, but I am very curious to where the conversation is going. And it is nice to be back in the educator space.
Hey, glad that you're here. Mr. Nolan, you want to give greetings while we're holding space?
Good morning. Good morning. Husan, hello. How you doing? You already know my brother in education. Adriana, hey, Leticia, hey, I'm sorry, Dr. Coleman, Fro, my people, Pfizer, Bill, Damu, Mysterious, my tarnished reputation. How y'all doing? I love being in this space, even though I'm transitioning out of it, but in my heart and in my mind and my soul, I am always an educator. School social worker here, work with K through 12 students in a lot of various settings. So this is definitely something that's always close to my heart, because it definitely affects not only us, but all our Black and brown babies as well. So I'm always excited to be here and learn and offer what I can offer whenever appropriate.
Yeah, man. Glad that you're here. Looks like the old gang is coming back around. Educator's House is back, y'all. So for the sake of the familiar faces, I'm doing a morning show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. And I'm doing these multi-part deep dives. And so right now I'm deep diving onto diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can check out, I'm live streaming on YouTube, as you can see from the link above. So you can easily check out some of the old stuff rather than having to like dig and bury to try to find replays on the app. So if you go back, you'll see that I went all the way back to the Civil War era. We talked about Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, and the Freedmen's Bureau, and we've marched our way forward through time. We did a special topic on Clarence Thomas and the historical context in which he existed and how he ended up in the Supreme Court, and his thing on what was affirmative action back then, but looking at him as a person. So really interesting stuff came up there. And then today we're sort of finding that middle balance, right? Adding that extra layer of context, because between chattel slavery and civil rights, you have this Enlightenment period, and you have this concept out of the Frankfurt School, a post-Marxist theory. A lot of people associate Marxism with communism, but this post-Marxist theory about critical theory, suggesting that all systems have an inherent and maybe an unconscious bias that we, the philosophers, need to address. And so this particular guy is known for like, let's move philosophy out of the esoteric and make it very practical, right? Marx was kind of the first one to do that, suggesting that the proletariat would overthrow the elite powerful, but it never happened the way that he predicted. Critical theory came along and said, well, you got to look at the technology, you got to look at the cultural hegemony, you got to look at the zeitgeist, and because of that you use those things to empower. And let's have a little compassion for the white man, because he might not even be consciously aware of his bias. He's just living in his own world and doing what he knows to do with what he's got. And that means, kill, steal, and destroy. Anybody. So that's sort of the context here. And my hope is that on Sunday, we will get to the conference, the live 2-hour conference, that Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I have a historian coming, and we're really going to look at this phase of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then the last week, as I land this plane, is going to be about this full intersection. We'll really be able to intersect education and DEI, because in modern times, we see that, as I mentioned, there's news reports of kids wanting to be cats, and, whether or not transgender studies should be taught at elementary age, and whether, students should be compelled to call their teacher Mix Crystal because she's non-binary, right? Are these the appropriate ways for critical theory to be included? Some would say, and forgive my soapbox, some would say absolutely yes. This is how we get to a more just and free society, is by saying from the earliest ages, these people are non-binary and this is how they want to be treated. And these people identify as, domestic dogs, and they like to be walked. So if you see a person crawling on the street with a leash, be not surprised, my dear third grader. This is what it means to be in a free and just society, and if you, my dear child, want to identify as a different gender or a different species, you too have the right to do that. Welcome to freedom. And there's the other side that says, what the fuck is going on? Sorry. They say, y'all doing too much. This is too much. Okay. And so that's where we see the words like indoctrination of our students happening in the classroom. That's where we see, get rid of critical race theory, and let's look at the books, the textbooks, and ask ourselves whether or not that should be happening. Let's dismantle gender studies at the university level. Let's get rid of the layer of bureaucrats who go around, doing calculations, the social science style calculations, to determine the level of bias that we find in the corporation or at the university, right? Those are non-academic, bureaucratic jibber jabbers. And what we see from Trump today is that attack, right? Whether that's Harvard University, whether that's the governor of Maine, whether that's the university system, it's all under attack because they're concerned that this critical theory thing, this woke thing, is taking it way too far. Dr. Coleman, you want to jump in on this for me, please?
So, yes. So here's just in the preliminary of what you, your synopsis, which was great. One of the things that I would say is this, that the university level would be very different than K through 12 or K3 through 12. And so I would say that, when it comes to the university system, people pay for that. Not only do they pay for that, they choose. And so we can leave that to them and their parents, or them and their, themselves. There are still, I have a college, well, she is a college graduate. We did that together. And even my youngest daughter, who is headed to college, that's a process that happens together. But that's my household. That's not everybody's experience. But K through 12 or pre-K through 12, that is a very different time period. And here's the other part of that. When we look at the psychology of the prefrontal cortex and how children are developing and all of that, that is a lot of information that they don't have places to put. Because it's already a lot of information just in who am I as a person, right? Now I'm going to add that I could be a dog or I could be a cat. What happens to the imagination, imaginary play? What happens to all of those things when we start putting all of these other things into the mix, then I think that we'll have chaos. So I think that that's headed in a different direction that I don't think we want that. I don't think we want or are we prepared for the consequences of that. And so let's just keep it very simple. Every time we keep it very simple, it seems to work. When we start adding things and making it too complex, that's when we see a lot of trouble.
I appreciate that. I'm going to highlight what's in the chat and then I'll go to Mr. Nolan. Mars says, I think a lot of views of the white man come from a sort of inferior lens. Not saying black people are inferior. You don't want to be attacked by us. But the bias exists. Sure, we can blame them, but would we have gotten DEI if equity or equality wasn't pushed for? So that's his opinion on the topic. I appreciate you, Mars. Maybe we can get you up on stage to speak to it. Mr. Nolan, I hope that you want to speak to it. If you're ready, sir, I'll pass you the mic now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What was the question on the floor? I got a call real quick. I apologize.
No, there's no question on the floor. We're just
elucidating on your synopsis.
Correct.
Yeah. I will say that I agree with you 100%, Dr. Coleman, that, undergrad or K through 20 and my soror. Hey, soror. I'm sorry. I just had to give my soror a proper greeting. But I do agree that K through 12 in college education is totally different. I agree to an extent about, like, say, for example, the example you gave, which was, I don't know if it was as extreme or whatever, but dogs, like, people walking on leashes as dogs, right? I'm a part of the kink and the poly community and the BDSM community, so I'm very familiar. Well, not very. I'm just getting, in it, but I'm familiar with play. I'm familiar with how people, there are people that practice primal, or I'm primal, or the people that practice pet play and those kinds of things. I think that we as a society feel like we are entitled to all information because of the way that information is disseminated now, right? However, it is not. In the times before, say, open technology and smart technology, you had to be initiated into certain levels of information, right? Libraries were not public at one point. They were secret mystery schools. Like, when we talk about, like, just the history of learning and what that did as a secret mystery school, is you had to be initiated into this knowledge and this gnosis, right? And then also you had to make sure they put you through different challenges or whatever have you, in order to let you understand, one, the context of this knowledge, the history of this knowledge, and also to prove whether you're worthy enough or whether you're responsible enough to be a good steward over it. I think that allowing certain knowledge to go kind of just out without any kinds of, context or any kinds of history or understanding could be very dangerous. I actually think that's what's happening now, is that people don't really know about DEI. They don't really know about gender. They don't really know about, LGBTQAI or BDSM or kink or queer. And so they're only going by what they might have seen in P Valley or what they might have heard, this and that and the third. A lot of people don't even have, queer friends that are out in certain spaces, in certain ideas. So they don't know. Right. And so I think that there's an appropriateness to the level of understanding. I typically point out, like, when a child asks, then they're ready to know, right? I guess that's what I'll say on that. The white man, blame the white man for DEI. I'm not sure if I don't understand this whole concept. If it wasn't for the white man, we wouldn't have DEI. I mean, that's true, because we wouldn't have white supremacy, wouldn't have kingdom empire, and we wouldn't have a need for this, because we would be in Africa living like kings, right? No, but seriously, like, a lot of the world's ills are because of white supremacy and the systems in which white supremacy function and are structured. Even in Marx, he was blind because guess what? He's white. And so Reinhold Niebuhr, other philosophers, white man philosophers, they always fall short of holding themselves accountable. Always. And whenever you read the shit, they definitely are not telling you to overthrow me. They're definitely not telling you to attack my silos of power. And I can't trust anybody that does not that does not see themselves as a part of the problem or hold themselves accountable. And it is the function, literally is this function of whiteness to erase all manners of difference and then put white as the standard to the point where white people themselves believe that they're white, and whiteness is a myth. But so I mean, that's a deeper conversation. It's really, I mean, DEI is maybe the top of the iceberg. And DEI doesn't even go far enough. DEI is really putting lipstick on a pig in a lot of places. The truth is, if we're doing justice work, then justice work is a radical redistribution of wealth, of finances, resources, and that shit don't happen in most institutions and universities. So I'm interested into seeing, what others have to say about it.
Okay, I'll take over from here. I'm just going to write this word down so I don't forget. Definitely want to come on Sunday. It's hard to get it all packed into this 1 hour show, primarily because it's early in the morning. So it's, people, have their own morning routines that they're getting into. And it's only 1 hour. So by the time we really get to cooking, like now, we're officially on overtime. So I'm going to land this plane, but I do want to invite you guys Sunday after church, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. Come back. We'll have 2 hours. It's all scheduled. It's a pretty chill day. And then we can really get into it. But this is the meat of the matter that I want to try and unpack on Sunday. A couple things came up, and then I will land this plane. Based on what I've heard, I am concerned about the Peter Pan problem, right? I heard Dr. Coleman, and this isn't addressed, it's just what came up when I heard Dr. Coleman speaking. This idea of play and imagination, right? Which is the Peter Pan world. And my son thought he could fly until he bumped his head on the ground jumping off the couch, right? So these kinds of things happen. But at some point, the moral of the Peter Pan story is at some point, you put that down and you go out into the real world, and Peter Pan couldn't quite figure that out. And so, this idea of at what degree is it play and at what degree do we let play go so far that it becomes debilitating is one thought that I had. The second thought came around this concept of inferior thinking. And again, I'm not pushing against Mars. I'm just adding to the concept. For me, this idea of inferiority, how would I say, has to be in relationship to the hierarchy of probably another white man. Blame the white man. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If my needs are about how do I get these shackles off of my arms, then it's hard for me to think about, the proletariat fighting against systems of oppression. I'm just trying to get these shackles off my arms. So there's context in which inferior thinking comes up. And then finally, play versus the practical. The thing that I wrote down in my notes is let them eat cake. If we are, I'll hearken to a great, how would I call it, quote to sort of land this plane to this point about play. And I think it connects to BDSM and poly as well, even though that's always been part of our sexual expression. It has certainly become, how would I say, more both palatable and popular these days. So my thought is this: what a privilege to be able to crawl on your knees, if that's what you're into, on the streets of New York with a leash, with someone who is holding that leash, and while they're wearing 8-inch platform combat boots. What a privilege, so that old philosophy that hard times make hard men make soft times, and soft times make soft men, and soft men make hard times. And so the mere existence of this portion of the conversation, this let them eat cake world, let us just play, let us go back to the Peter Pan era. It's a demonstration of the consequence of convenience. We live in a wonderfully convenient time to where that is a possibility. And some would say, to God be the glory, that some people, that people have the opportunity and space to do exactly that. But soft men make hard times. And so at some point, this is potentially, according to the philosophy, going to come crashing down. And when we look at our economy, we look at what's happening politically, we look at what's happening globally, perhaps, quite perhaps, we're in the middle of a shift. And if we see it and do nothing about it, then perhaps that's our fault. So with that said, welcome to the Educator's House, where we are speaking truth to power, and we're unpacking this stuff amongst me and my colleagues, and you are welcome to be a part of it. We'll see you on Sunday. You can live stream it here on the YouTube channel at Educator's House. But yeah, we're going to get into it. I'll do one quick foreshadow. Let me do one quick foreshadow, and then I'll pass it to you, and then we'll close.
It's just a quick question about links.
Oh, go ahead.
So I don't see the Sunday Rooms link because I was trying to share it. That's the thing I was trying to tell you.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, let me.
I see Monday and Wednesday. So just while people are closing, if you pop it like you schedule it while other people are talking, then it can be shared. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
I didn't want to miss it before the room closed. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Thank you for bringing that up. It should be. So let me do that. Let me let the room give their final thoughts. I usually do a little bit on remarkable. If you were to share this with somebody, what remark would you make? So use that as a frame. But Adrian, can I pass it? How do I say control over to you while I get this room scheduled?
Yeah.
Thank you, dear.
We'll go in reverse PTR order about sharing what you find to be remarkable. And big shout out to Husan for like holding this space and the time he takes to curate information to give us a really solid foundation to kind of build off of and learn from a great model of education and then including us in the conversation. So are there any remarks, things that you found remarkable that you want to make sure you uplift, share with somebody else you got out of the conversation? We're going in reverse PTR order. So Mr. No One, we'll start with you.
Yes, absolutely. One, I want to share two things that I think are remarkable. One, this room, you all, I know a lot of you, outside of this room and the work that you do. And I'm just so very happy that you are in this world. Even if I did not know you, I love you because you are definitely making a positive difference in this world. And so that's one remarkable thing. And Husan, I thank you so. I'm sorry, Husan. Husan. Where did I get Husan from? Husan. I really appreciate the fact that you definitely make sure to bring these things to a forefront in a way that we can, eloquently talk about it. I think the second thing that I want to share is remarkable is the audacity of mediocre white men, especially those in the chat. Like Mars. I think that when we go into spaces and we try to, I don't know, push our own, very, very, very narrow, ignorant views on others, it kind of is counterproductive to a space like this that is meant to come and sit and learn. I will say that it actually proves my point about the audacity of mediocre white men. I mean, just look at our president and our world leaders.
Mr. No, I, not to be rude, but just we are in overtime right now. Sorry. So we're 9 minutes in overtime. So I am going to ask.
So those are the two things.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Dr. Coleman, did you have a remarkable remark?
Yes, again, I enjoy coming to the space. I will definitely be back. I will try to make it back on Sunday because anytime that I am in the space, the conversation has been rewarding and very enriching. So that is one of the remarkable things. And so I appreciate the time, Husan, that you spend, and to the other moderators. Thank you. Thank you for having a great conversation this morning as I prepare for work. I appreciate it. And shout out to my frat brother.
Leticia, always good to see you across several different spaces. Did you have a remark that you would like to end us with? Something that stood out to you from the conversation?
So I'm in the parking
Boo, boo,
garage
boo, boo, boo. Hey, boo.
so
You are
red
in the
bar, so I'm
matrix.
not sure if you can hear me.
No.
But hi, Adrian.
Yeah, she
Hey,
deep
boo.
underwater. Hey,
Yeah,
boo.
sorry, you and Neo playing games. Tell Morpheus to get off your back.
Loose.
So I'll do mine, and maybe by then your red bar is gone. If not, then Hassan's gonna close us out. So as Leticia was sharing, and I put this in the chat, it was the first time I had thought about how connected two words were: enlightenment, which is highly respected, historically studied, elevated, and lived in the space of whiteness, if we're being honest, and then the term woke. If you actually think about them, they're really not that far in terms of their meaning. But the people who operated in wokeness, the people who studied and understood wokeness have been demonized and are generally, its origins are pretty related to people who look like us. So I something about that stood out to me, and I feel like it's something worth exploring at some time, Hassan, if you're open to it. But I do think this idea of the history of enlightenment in its place, and wokeness in its place, and how the two have been looked at very differently, it kind of blew my mind this morning. So that's where I'll end and pass it to you.
No, thank you. Thank you. That was it's worthy of deeper examination because I really didn't know that much about enlightenment except for, the half chapter that I got in high school. So to now loop back around and see these real strong parallels, it just adds credibility to that statement. History doesn't repeat itself, but it damn sure rhymes. There's a lot of rhyming going on. There's a lot of bars that we're giving up on in this song called Life. Listen, guys, we did it. And I don't want to belabor because I know a lot of us have to get our workday going, but hopefully you will continue to be part of this community as I'm reestablishing our presence here. And the summer is going to be exciting. There's a friend of mine who suggested that I might need to organize some sort of a summer summit or some sort of a larger experience where we can really get together and attack some of these things. So keep your ears open for that. We'll see what that looks like, but I'm excited to do something before school starts where we can really get together in a major way, grounding each other and empowering each other for the next round. Okay, guys, listen, I'm going to close this room down. Thank you guys for coming. I hope to see you on Sunday. I do have the link above, and I put the link in the chat so that you can mark it, and we'll just take it from there. So I'm going to close this room down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Peace, everybody. I think I did it. Did I do it? Okay, there we go. Hello? Am I there? Is the room ended? I'm so confused. Okay, I think I got it ended on the app, and now I'm here with YouTube. Thanks, everybody. I hope that you guys have gotten some value out of this. I'm pushing into week 4 next week, so my 5-week experiment is almost over, and I'm excited. I've tried to non-judgmentally analyze the data and kind of see how things are progressing, but I'll do a more formal analysis at the 5-week mark. But the 5th week is actually going to be the first week of our new topic. So there's not really much room for downtime, but this idea of how technology intersects child development, especially screen time, is what I want to get into next. And so that's going to be, as you can imagine, multiple parts there. Call to action to you guys would be dropping links. If you can drop any links that are relevant to today's topic down in the topic below, just to add to our credibility, I would appreciate that. And if you have any links related to screen time or child development, you can send those to my back channel. I would appreciate, whoa, check out the snazzle over there. I would appreciate your support there as well. Okay, guys, I think I've done it and I'm out. Peace, peace, peace.